Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Knack, and we have got some replay action coming at you right now. We have got 3 replays going to be all Giraffe playing, taking on 3 different opponents. Now, I have recorded these already. You may have seen them on the live stream. However, I did record them at too high of a sound sample rate, and I'm unable to render videos at that sample rate, so it was my mistake. It was just a problem that I had after my computer crashed, and I had to reset everything, set everything up again, and you know what? I just messed up some of my settings, so what can I say? Big mistake, but we are going to go ahead and get these guys up together in a nice little YouTube package. So thank you guys for watching these, and the goal here, I guess, might as well introduce that here real quick. Giraffe is very, very active in his clan, which is clan AOW, Art of War. So go check those guys out. Definitely want to be a part of that if you can. But he's doing a lot of training there, where he's teaching people how to play, and he is an extremely highly ranked player. Tons of fun to watch this guy. So we're going to be putting these together, and the goal here is for me to try, or for us rather, he's pointed out a lot of the things to me, but for us to point out a lot of the things that make him a good player. And so that he can have a kind of a go-to video for the people that he's training to go watch and pick up on some of just the smaller things, like the things that should be easier to pick up on, let's put it that way. For instance, timings. And you'll notice that his build order is extremely crisp. You won't see him floating very many minerals at any given time. It's always going to be under 300 in the early stages of the game, unless he's going to be putting down a Nexus, of course, which costs 400 minerals, just so you guys know. And it looks like he is headed out to do that here in just a second. He is going to be fast expanding on this map against his Zerg opponent, and notice what he's doing. He's going to try and block his opponent's expand while he is taking his, so kind of nice, wants to try and gather as much of an advantage as he possibly can. But notice now, I mean, watch his minerals here for just a moment. You'll see 130, 140. He's going to be right around in that area, just enough to be able to put down the things that he needs to, and then right back down to 0. Keep those minerals spent. That's the best advice he and I can give anybody at this point. So what you need to do to be able to accomplish that is practice your build order. Now notice that he's got this build order very, very well practiced. The next game, the next replay, is actually on the same map against a Zerg opponent, and you'll notice it's in a different position, but the positioning of these buildings is almost identical. And that is because he practices that build so well. So that's one of the things we want to give to people, is to show them what that's going to mean for you to be to be practicing your build instead of just winging it. And that methodical play does come into play in this matchup. So we'll get into that. We do see his Nexus completing here, and a probe transfer immediately. The reason you do that is so that you don't mine your main out or too fast. You want to be mining this base as long as possible. It's the easiest for you to defend. Actually, both of these are, especially with this positioning. So want to mine these out as slow as possible when it comes down to it, but at a fast enough pace where your economy is rocking and rolling. But having one mine faster than the other, not a great situation. So you see that he splits those up. It's methodical play, and it's just good stuff to be doing. His opponent is keeping decent map control at this point. And making sure that nothing is headed out across the map here, which is great. So obviously his opponent here, Effort, a pretty good player, and notice how he's responding to the Forge Fast Expand. He's going to be taking a third base here at before the 6-minute mark. Looks like this sucker is about to complete. There it is. So solid play here from Effort, but note what that means for him. His economy is actually slightly lower, and that is because Giraffe has been spending a lot of his Chrono Boost energy on his economy. And notice that his energy is always very, very low here. Look at that, Chrono boosting out both Nexus at this point. That is what's keeping his probe count extremely high. Now just remember, a Forge Fast Expand build is an econ build. So take it that way, and always make sure that you're getting both of those bases saturated as quickly as possible, and that's what we see here from Giraffe. Now he's going to go ahead and start chrono boosting out his warp gate tech. Going to be needing that here fairly soon, and he's going to need more than one unit producing structure, so we'll probably see him get that here in just a moment. But Effort taking this opportunity to drone up pretty stinking hard as well. And look at this, we do have another thing from Giraffe is once you've got your forge down, go ahead and utilize it. I mean, yeah, you're going to need it for your photon cannons, but go ahead and grab your forge and get an upgrade started. Notice that he's going to be getting out armor level 1 here. So any old upgrade will do, but you want to be utilizing those tech buildings, and forge counts, brother. I mean, it is an upgrade building. So go ahead and do it. Make all of your buildings count the best way that you possibly can. So Giraffe now going to be on 2 solid base. Notice that they are fully saturated. Going to be tossing down his robotics. He's got 4 gateways here that are about to complete. And let's take a look at what Effort's got going in his base. He does have another macro hatch going down, but he is getting melee attack level 1 here. Is just sticking with his spawning pool so far for tech, except he actually is working. I have to take that back. He is working on his lair, so that does count. Lair is complete. We do have the Roach Warren going down. Queen's happily injecting larvae, so Effort doing a phenomenal job here. Let's check the units tab here for just a moment. You can see that Effort has caught up because of that extra production capability off of 3 bases with queens and inject larvae. Makes them pretty stinking effective. But we do have movement here from Giraffe. Notice that he's getting all of his sentries relatively early in the game. That is a smart thing to do, ladies and gentlemen. You want to go ahead and get these guys early so that they can start accumulating that energy. And as long as you can keep them alive here, that will serve you well later in the game, because then you can cast a lot more force fields, toss up some guardian shields if you need, and such as that. So pretty stinking effective. I like this quite a bit. He's going to be warping in some stalkers. He does have blink in this army, and he's doing this attack before he really gets much going on his robotics. So kind of interesting, but as you'll see, is fairly effective. So here comes the attack. Good force fielding. Notice that most of these roaches aren't able to attack at this point. All of those zerglings just evaporating to the attacks of the zealots and the sentries actually as well. So pretty good stuff there. Taking that stuff out pretty good. Didn't lose very many units there. Let's check the units lost. We can see that Effort did indeed lose 500 or so more. So not bad exchange there for Giraffe, but he's going to go ahead and back out here. He knows that his opponent is going to be on 3 base at this point and going to be able to reinforce that army very, very quickly. You don't want to commit too small of a force against your Zerg opponents. So very methodical play. Notice that he's just going to be backing out here and now waiting for his new tech. He saw plenty of roaches, knows that his opponent probably going to be able to mass those roaches there very quickly. Time to do something else. So he's going to go ahead and secure his expand here in just a moment, it looks like, which is the right move. You got to get yourself on your 3rd base before too long. You don't want to wait too long. But watch the pylon placement. Now what Giraffe's going to do here is wall this off. Yeah, it's a big spot to wall off, but he wants to slow down any harassment that might come into this mineral line here. So it's actually a really nice play. Going to add some Colossus to his army, and here goes the wall off. So beautiful wall off there. Now he's getting to a point where he's got this kind of scary army. He didn't rush into Colossus or anything like that. He just got it in good time. And you notice that really what held him there and made his attack successful there in the early game was that the sentries. So for those of you out there learning to play Protoss, take note. You're going to need to learn how to use force fields very well. You need to be a good spellcaster to be effective as a Protoss player, and your main spellcaster is going to be sentry. So kind of interesting, but learn from the best. Giraffe definitely has got those skills. We do see some movement here from Effort. He's got quite a few roaches cruising around here. Looks like he is going to be mounting attack on this third. Now notice what Giraffe can do here. He could either go defend here. However, he does see the size of this army, thinks that it's small enough where he's going to get a flank on it. So he's coming around the backside here, and notice that this wall-in slowed his opponent down enough where he just couldn't get in and really hurt the economy of the of Giraffe here at the mineral line. Now he's trying to run away. Those force fields probably could have been a little better, but all in all, not bad there from Giraffe. He did get supply block though, so always make sure that you've got extra pylons. If you're going to be putting pylons up for a wall in here, you want to have a couple extra pylons somewhere in the back. Got to realize that those are, the wall in structures may take a beating. So try not to get yourself a supply block there. Obviously, Giraffe going to be remedying that here in just a moment, but he's got a pretty scary army together now. He's just basically focused on keeping it alive and putting a little bit of pressure on his opponent here and there, so that his opponent is not focusing on his macro as much as he is, well, I guess, not focusing as much on his economy as he is focusing on building up defensive units, which is exactly what the case was in this game. Now you can see that Effort, with good force field placement, is just going to be able to obliterate this army. All these roaches falling very, very quickly. We do have these infestors in the back doing a decent amount of damage, not quite as much as they need to be doing. Some decent fungals went down, but just, again, it's not enough. And that's partially because this DPS of the Colossus, now with the +1 upgrade there, just too much for your Zerg opponents to handle. And still, I mean, look at this. After a big attack there, he's still got a very, very large army alive. Didn't really have to reinforce it all that much to keep this as big as it is. And that came down to his force field placement. He really was able to make these units that much more cost effective with good force field placement. So these roaches are going to be taking out some reinforcing Colossus. That was one small mistake there, because Effort did have these towers. He saw those reinforcing Colossus and was able to take advantage of that. But at this point, I mean, Giraffe, yeah, that's a small mistake, but it's not that big of a deal, especially when Effort is scrambling to try and build up an army big enough to take on this many Stalkers and this many Colossus. Still has a very, very large army together. He's getting in some reinforcements up here, a couple Archons, looks like, and some Zealots. Going to take out some Overlords, not a bad idea. Although it didn't make much difference. Effort was a little bit under, so couldn't get supply block that easily. Here comes the movement from Giraffe. Looks like he's probably going to be able to take this down with one last push. We do have a decent amount of infestors here, good solid number of roaches, but obviously we've seen that with good force field placement and this DPS behind, that's just not going to be enough roaches. Now let's see how this engagement goes and see if we can grab any last tips from this. Keeping the Colossus fairly safe in the back. We did see a couple neural parasites go down. Not tons you can do about that from this location. But blinking forward here to prevent his opponent from really getting away, making him feel too close. Why back away? They'll just take too many shots from those, from those units, and just have to go ahead and engage there. So he judged that situation very, very well, pressed that attack, and there it was, GG from Effort. So thank you guys for coming out. Thank you guys for watching. Don't alt-tab. Always alt-StarCraft. We'll be going into Game 2 here in just a moment. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Knack, and we do have Another replay from Giraffe. This one he is going to be taking on his Zerg opponent Seisha, who is in the same clan. However, that is not Clan Sin anymore. It is Clan AOW, so always take note of that. Art of War, go check those guys out. They are tons and tons of fun. You guys will definitely have a good time if you should be able to join that clan. They offer a lot of training and a lot of practice sessions and things like that. Fairly organized clan. Sometimes hard to come by, so go check those guys out. Giraffe going to be spawning as our Protoss player down here in the bottom right. Top right, we're going to find Seisha spawning as the pink Zerg. Now again, what we're trying to accomplish here is we're trying to give a video that just showcases some of those things that makes Giraffe a great player, to aid him in his training, and for those guys in the clan that need extra training when he just doesn't have time, they can come and kind of watch these videos and just learn some of the small tricks that make him such a great player. Now remember what we were talking about in the last game was his building placement, how he practices his building placement, and is able to execute that at any position and crisply, good timings and such as that every single time. So same map, different position, but notice how he's going to place his buildings in an exact mirror of what it was up here at that top base in that last game. So we saw it from that angle here. Now we're going to see it from a different angle. So you'll see that he's going to be able to place his buildings in the exact same fashion. Now he's going to do something a little different here. He did scout his opponent early, so he's going to take his Nexus first. But notice that he's doing that because he scouted his opponent. Knows that his opponent is not going to be rushing. Didn't six pool him or anything like that. Because of that, he knows that he's going to be able to get his forge and cannon up in time. So taking advantage of his early scouting, that lucky scouting when you go the correct direction right away. But watch what he does here. Same placement, the same exact placement every time of these buildings. He'll have the same wall off that he did up here in that top base. So phenomenal stuff from Giraffe. That is the tip of this game, I guess, or at least the first 4 minutes of the game. The tip is practice your building placement. Some people call it the SimCity build or whatever you want to call it, but you need to know exactly where you're going to be putting buildings, especially against a Zerg player where walling off is actually kind of key. So practice your building placement. Great tip. Notice what he's doing here. He's going to be spending his energy on his Nexus as soon as he's got the money to continue that production. There he goes. Knows that he can keep queuing up probes there, so going to be using his energy on his Nexus, getting those probes out as fast as possible. Photon cannon going to complete here. There are two Zerglings that could have ran by, mostly for scouting information, but they wouldn't have been able to do much damage. But as you can see, I mean, this wall-in almost identical to what he had up in that last game. Actually, it is identical when it comes down to it, but pretty good stuff. So practice those things, and notice that he is going to be chrono boosting out his economy here. Yet again, lots of chronos going down on his Nexus. So if you're going to Forge Fast Expand, go ahead and spend your energy on getting out more probes. You want to saturate those two base ASAP. Now let's take a look at what Seisha is going to be doing here. You look at this, it looks like a macro hatch right here next to those destructible rocks, which is not a bad place to have it. Oh, that's going to cancel. And Seisha does have pretty decent economy here. Looking pretty good. Let's take a look at the units tab. You can see that chrono really coming to an effect. He's got quite a few more drones than his opponent at this point. So great job there. And that's why you want to continue chrono boosting out your economy. Look at that. Chrono. Going down on Nexus. He is just pumping probes out like it's his job. And indeed it is. So good stuff. If you're going to macro with Protoss. This is how you do it. You keep chrono boosting yourself out. However, don't get supply blocks. That's usually not good for you. So small misclick there, but no big deal. And going to be chrono boosting out his armor level 1. Notice that he's just finding other things to spend his money on while he was supply blocked. So that's a good thing to do. Don't just sit there and go, oh crap, I got supply blocked, and then wait to build something else. Go ahead and spend your minerals on something else if you can. It's the way to do it. I mean, build a building or something like that. It's always, always a good thing to do. Always keep your minerals low. You don't get a return on your investment for floating minerals. Let's put it that way. But nice looking build here. He's going to be getting some more gateways here in the back of his base. Well, in his main, I should say. But looking pretty solid. Getting a second forge down, and he tossed that down while he was supply blocked, just to spend those extra minerals. But since he did it, he's going to go ahead and utilize those buildings to get out some upgrades. So really, really nice play here. Now, Seisha is keeping pretty decent map control with these Zerglings, but pretty soon you'll see that Giraffe going to turn the tables. He's going to start pushing out and being a lot more active with his units. And that's as soon as he really gets these buildings up and running, he's got to have those warp gates ready to go. Once he's got some warp gates up, he's probably going to start moving out and start putting on some pressure. So let's take a look and watch what he's going to do. He is going to be getting out his Twilight Council here, starting Blink immediately. Blink Micro is super, super effective if you can do it correctly. And we'll see how he's going to utilize Blink Micro here in just a little while. If I remember correctly, it is pretty stinking solid. I do have a robotics bay, a robotics facility, I should say, up and running just now. And Giraffe did get supply blocked one more time. My goodness. So that did cost him just a second there, but not too bad. Looks like he was on top of it pretty good. Going to take out these destructible rocks here. Gear up for his third, which is a great play at this point. Seisha going to be doing the same thing. So both of these guys, high-level players, know when to expand. You just got to get that stuff done sometimes. Sometimes it's more risky to not expand than it is to expand. So, always do it. Going to get in a Warp Prism. Warp Prism play becoming increasingly effective. It's just like a mobile pylon. I mean, gotta love that. When you warp in as many units as you want, wherever you want, and move it out of the way instead of abandoning it if your attack fails. So, good stuff to have mix those in your army if you can. And we do have this observer here to spot the high ground. Looks like we're going to see some blink potentially up to the high ground. A nice looking harass. Indeed we are. And look at this. Going to keep his sentries down here on the low ground as kind of a base to back up against, which is a great play. Nice fungal there from Seisha. It's exactly what you got to do for defense. Good force fields going down, keeping these stalkers a lot safer right now. With those fungals taking out quite a few. Going to be warping in some more stalkers up here on the high ground. Looking pretty solid. Oh, those infestors just getting a little ahead of themselves there. Good fungal. And as you can see, a lot of damage being done with not very many units just because of that placement. Back them up against the cliff. There's units down here on the low ground that can't really be attacked. Those sentries, which can still cast the force fields up there on the high ground, obviously if they have the vision, which you do when you've got stalkers up on the high ground. So nice play, and going to be backing out here. Just warped in units to reinforce his army as he backed out. I mean, that's awesome. You got to love warp prisms. Then he can back that warp prism out immediately. But good harassment here. He was able to take out quite a few drones. Yeah, it was held off here by Seisha, but it's what you got to do. You've got to keep picking at your opponent. You've got to start getting active eventually. Notice that Seisha is behind, so he's putting the pressure on in a great way at this point, costing Seisha a lot of resources from his units lost there. So great stuff. And now it's time to switch. I mean, we're definitely in the mid game, and at this point, you've really got to start tech switching, or at least choosing what your DPS is going to be. And he is going to be going for Colossus here, which is a great choice against a Zerg army, generally speaking. It's got double Robo, probably going to start pumping some more Colossus out. Yikes, where's this guy headed? There we go. Mix him in the army. That's the best place for him. Now, take a look at what Seisha's trying to do here. He's got... Well, first let's look at Units tab. Notice that he's way down economically. Just not able to... Because of the pressure that Giraffe has been putting on him, he's just unable to have the economy that he needs. He's having to produce too many fighting units, and he's constantly afraid of an attack as soon as that first harassment started going. So getting into your opponent's head that way is exactly what you want to be doing. Put that pressure on, even if it's going to cost you a couple units. You don't have to win the game with every single push. So nice stuff. He knows when to back out, and Blink obviously enabling him to do that very safely. But here comes his army. I don't like that he allowed his army to split here. It turns out to not be a big deal, obviously, because he corrals them right here first. But always, always keep your army together. And as a rule, Giraffe is very, very good at keeping his entire army together here. Good fungals going down here. But this is just that point where it's like you've got this death ball. You can do just about anything you want. Notice that he started warping in zealots right here to kill the economy right off the bat, while his opponent's focusing on trying to deal with this entire army. And so the economy goes down in tandem with this army pushing into the base. You've got to love that. It puts Seisha at this crazy position where he just doesn't have enough resources, really, or unit producing structures, being obviously those hatcheries, to be able to handle it. Plus he's trying to deal with his main army. So there it is from Seisha. GG. Got to love that game there from Giraffe. But the main points here is practice your build order, keep your army together, put pressure on, and know when to back out. And as long as you're doing those things, that's gonna help you bring your play level up closer to Giraffe. So thank you guys for coming out. Thank you guys for watching. Don't alt tab. Always alt StarCraft. We will see you guys here in Game 3. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Knack, and we have got our last of these 3 replays here from Giraffe, where we are trying to give a little video pack to his clan members, for them to start watching his gameplay a little bit more closely and just try and notice some of the very, very cool things that he does that just enables him to play at a higher level and take down very highly ranked opponents, like Yoshmeister, for instance. We are going to be playing a PvP here on Antigua Station. Yoshmeister going to be spawning as green Protoss here at the 8 o'clock position. Up here at the 11 o'clock, we do have Giraffe as our teal Protoss. Now notice that Giraffe, because he's not going to be playing against his Zerg opponent in this game, is going to have a slightly different build order here. Forge fast expanding, a little less viable, let's put it that way. I mean, it's not unheard of to forge fast expand against just about any race, but you've got to be careful in a mirror matchup, especially with the great possibility that your opponent is going to foregate. And foregating with this choke here, it could be difficult to defend, let's put it that way. And why take that kind of risk? So he knows exactly what he's doing, going to go for a little bit more standard opener here. against a Protoss. Where the deviations occur is where I think the fun is. And so we'll see exactly what he's got going for us here in just a moment. But let's take a look at Yoshmeister. You can see that Yoshmeister has got pretty solid timings. Yoshmeister actually slightly ahead on his probes. So his timing's even maybe just a little bit more crisp than Giraffe, but not by very much. And here's where we start to have just a little deviation. So Cybernetics Core going down in great time for Giraffe. And let's take a look. Cybercore is going to be ready for some chrono if you were going to be going for a 4-gate here. However, Giraffe not going to be 4-gating this game. So let's take a look and see exactly what he's going to do. Watch what he's going to do here. He's going to go ahead and start his Cybercore or his Warp Gate tech. Check the Units tab for just a moment. Notice that Giraffe going to start to be slightly ahead in the probes. You can see that he's just starting to be one ahead. So part of that is because he used a 3rd chrono here on his Nexus, taking the slight lead there economically. Going to be keeping his Zealot here in his mineral line for just a moment, trying to chase off this probe. Continuing to not chrono his Cybercore is chronoing his economy right now. Is getting out the defensive units that he needs here. You can see he's going to be working on more Stalkers, is comfortable with his Stalker micro, so he knows that if there is a 4-gate attack, however, he does know that it's not actually coming. He has been scouting his opponent, knows exactly what's going on, knows that he's got plenty of time here, but going to be getting out a decent number of Stalkers. That should let you know kind of where he's headed. Here, he's going to be chrono boosting out some Stalkers. Wants to make sure and have just enough defenses should his opponent choose to 4-gate him. So, but look what he's got going here. Twilight Council and immediately going for Blink. Now he's doing this because of good scouting. He's been in his opponent's base, sees what's going on. Did see that Robo, so he knows what's going on and that he's got time to go ahead and get his Blink out. Now we do have a 3-gate Robo here from Yoshmeister. Went down at an extremely good time. However, he doesn't have to worry about an attack here at the 6-minute mark or 6.5-minute mark even. Knows that his opponent's going to have to be just slightly behind on a push because of this tech switch here to the Immortals. So good judgment there, and he is doing this very, very appropriate tech switch himself. Good way to counter a 3-gate Robo potentially. Now it does require micro skills, but that, as you can see, Giraffe has got those, and he is going to be trying it out. We'll see how his Blink micro is going to come into play here in just a little while. He's going to have 3 gates at this point and going to put himself in kind of a holding pattern. Now notice that he did get out a Robo, but this is not a 3-gate Robo. He's getting out this robotics facility for one reason, Observer. Not even going to get an Immortal, I don't think. I don't remember for sure. He may get out an Immortal, but I don't think he does, to be honest. So I'd actually be surprised if he does. If he's going to go Blink Stalker, he's probably going to commit to it pretty solid. But here comes his Observer, and that guy's going to be headed out across the map. Blink is definitely complete at this point. We do have quite a few Blink Stalkers on the field. Going to try and put some pressure on his opponent with these Blink Stalkers. Now, okay, I'm going to pause here for just a second. Let's take a look at the Units tab. Notice that his opponent has got 2 Immortals and 4 Stalkers, 2 Sentries, and a Zealot. Now, he's going to be moving out here with 8 with 8 Stalkers. You would probably think that the defense for Yoshmeister is going to be plenty, and you would be right. However, The goal here is not to win the game. So let's get back into this here in just a second. The goal here is to put pressure on your opponent, which does two things for you. Number one, you can cost them a little bit of money here and there. Notice that he's just going to try and snipe this pylon and then back out as soon as he smells danger. Now he does lose one and almost two stalkers in that process, but he did take out the pylon, as well as the second thing, which is super important. That is, he is forcing his opponent to worry about defense. Now he does lose his observer there, which is just a little bit of a misclick. Probably could have tried to get that guy out of the way. But nice play here from Yoshmeister, but look what he's having to do. He's having to play defensively. Do you see him cruising out down here to the low ground and securing his natural? No, you do not. You see him camping in his base and trying to decide whether or not he's going to have to defend more Blink Stalker attacks like that. So watch what Giraffe's going to do here. He's going to continue poking around his opponent's base here. And blinking out. Blinking out of the base extremely quickly. He did lose two, but that was because of the good force fielding from Yoshmeister. Great control from Yoshmeister. But because of this, look what's happening now. Now it's Giraffe, able to take his expand safely. He's keeping his opponent stuck in his base and stuck on a single base with less units than what his opponent has. I mean, look at the size of Yoshmeister's army here. He's got 3 Immortals in his army, couple sentries for some good force fielding here, and plenty of stalkers. I mean, he's got, when it comes down to it, he's got the superior force and greater unit composition with those Immortals. It's a lot of damage to be dealt there. But now look what happens. He sees his opponent scooting around here to the low ground. Watch what he's going to do. As soon as he sees that, he goes right up to the high ground, knows that his opponent's army is going to be out of position, and puts some pressure on his opponent. Now, is he going to win the game with this push? Probably not, right? Takes out these pylons, unpowers the buildings. He's just being a pest. And Yoshmeister doing the right thing, trying to go ahead and secure his expand at this point, but he's late on it. And it's really costing him a lot right now. And then Giraffe going to blink out of here. This guy not quite making it down. Does get sacrificed. But look at the size, the difference in the army composition here. I mean, Yoshmeister's way, way ahead when it comes down to it, army size-wise. But because of that mobility of the blink, he's using that to his advantage to keep his opponent behind. Check the units tab here real quick. It's still up. We do have 30 probes for Giraffe and only 24 for Yoshmeister, and that is because of the amount of pressure that he's had to deal with. So Giraffe going to be winning this game simply by forcing his opponent to deal with Blink for too long. Look at this. He's having to cruise down here now to try and defend this. Blinking down here in great time, but obviously a blink saved up here for Giraffe and able to get the heck out of there whenever he needs. So extremely good play there. Yoshmeister still trying to secure this natural, but having a tough time doing it. And a little bit of back and forth there. Units lost does show that Giraffe is actually behind at this point in the resources lost. So, I mean, he's really putting in a lot of work and even sacrificing a lot of units to make this detriment to Yoshmeister's economy happen, and that is that he's really slowed down this expand and is just putting himself in a position where he's kind of stuck with only 4 unit producing structures, 3 gateways, and a robotics facility, having to constantly produce more units for defense. And yet again, see, keeping the pressure on, forcing his opponent to keep getting out attacking units, and just looking for the time when he can overrun his opponent, picking at him for weaknesses. Now, let's take a look at his base. He does have 4 warp gates, does have this robotics facility, obviously, but he's noticing that his opponent is pretty well stuck producing defensive units. So he's going to go ahead and toss down a lot of gateways here. I think he's going to toss down at least 4, I think maybe he gets to 8. There's 8 right there, so maybe he'll get 1 or 2 more, we'll see. But here comes the attack. Notices, look, he scouted this with an observer, that there was 4 mortals just kicking it by themselves in the back of the base, taking that opportunity to just take down these highly expensive units. And is he going to continue this attack here? Blinking out. No, he's not. Just didn't feel like he could handle that numbers. It was more of a wash, but he did the damage that he needed to. He took out 4 immortals that were just not with the rest of the army, taking every single small advantage that he possibly can. Now he's about to have 4 more warp gates, a total of 8 warp gates, so he should have the warp in advantage, and that can play a big difference in the middle of the battle. And he's going to try and utilize that to his advantage here. He's probably going to set down a pylon here pretty close to this area where he's camping. And you look at him, you can see him scouting. Look at that. There goes the pylon right now. Excuse me. And he is scouting this with his observer. Got to get that observer out of there. He needs to keep that guy alive so he can start warping up here. Here comes the engagement, feeling like he can go ahead and engage this. Look at how he's utilizing his blink micro to back these guys out, going ahead and tossing down a pylon. Now his opponent's scouting that. And there's just nothing he can do about this at this point. I mean, he's having to defend up here on his high ground, in the back of his base. I mean, his front door is essentially wide open. And this is just solid play from Giraffe. Making do with a little less is what it comes down to, but only 4 gateways for Yoshmeister at this point. And here comes another attack. Looks like about even number of stalkers. Actually, let's just check. 29 to 26, so Giraffe slightly ahead, and now the warp-ins commence. He's got a lot of extra units now. Was able to warp in a lot of stalkers. Blink micro being utilized by both players here fairly well. You can see both players blinking back their wounded units. But look at this, the warp in making the difference here. I do want to note too that Yoshmeister has +1 attack on these units, but because of that warp in difference, these units are going to overrun Yoshmeister, and it is about to be game, ladies and gentlemen. Just comes down to that management of that single unit and its spell, this blink here for the stalkers. So phenomenal play from Yoshmeister. Take note, ladies and gentlemen, you can keep your opponents on your back with just good micro. Make do with a lot less. He did end up having a pretty rockin' economy, was securing a 3rd at this moment, but just phenomenal play, and it just comes down to those small things. He didn't overcommit to any of those blink stalker attacks until he knew for sure he was about to take this game down. He saw that it was going to happen, so instead of blinking out, he blinked forward, and that just does it right there. So thank you guys for coming out. Thank you guys for watching. Hope Clan AOW enjoys this. We will see you guys next time.